Hi, I'm Mike Steven, and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about something that caught me by surprise. Something that I thought was kind of gimmicky when I first saw it, and after playing on them for a little bit, they absolutely blew my mind. This is the company Onewheel, and they're building an absolutely crazy product. It's really fun, and it's got so many uses. At first I thought it would just be a toy, but no, it's a commuter, it's all sorts of things. So let's explain basically what it is. Basically what it is, it's a board that's electric and has the ability to go up to 32 kilometers an hour, has a range of about 28 kilometers. That's probably on the generous side. That's probably if you weigh 100 pounds and you're on flat ground and the wind's at your back. But they've got a pretty decent range, good for an hour and a half ride, something like that. People are definitely using them for commuting as well as just to play and have fun. This would probably be more the commuter model, the Pint. The Pint is a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, and has a little bit less power. But it's also got a super convenient carrying handle on the wheel so that whenever you get to where you're going, you can just carry it in with you. So that's the trick of commuting on a bike or commuting on things that are a little bit bigger. Is when you get to the place that you're going, you've either got to lock it up outside or figure out something to do with it. The really neat thing about Onewheels is that you can just grab them, go indoors with them, throw them in your locker, throw them in a small space. As I said, they can go up to 32 kilometers an hour. They're governed at that by Canadian law, but it's an electric motor with a lot of torque. It'll get you there quickly. It'll climb hills, descend. How it works in essence is there's pressure pads underneath these two portions of the board. And as you lean forward into the board, it's going to accelerate and come underneath you. So it almost, I don't want to make it sound too easy, but it almost self-balances, because when you push this way and lean forward, the board comes underneath you. If you lean back, the engine basically will start to go into reverse and giving you braking. And if you keep leaning there long enough, when you come to a stop, you'll start going the other way. The motor doesn't really care which way it goes. It can spin just as fast in either direction, so you can ride forwards and backwards, whatever you choose to do. How you turn it is basically just leaning it. It feels, a lot of people think a skateboard, but I'd have to say it feels way more like a snowboard or maybe surfing. It's kind of loose and a little bit playful. When you start taking it onto different terrain, because a lot of people think that, hey man, these things are totally just designed for pavement. Definitely not. The most fun on them is off the beaten path. These things can go on grass, gravel, single track trails. I find what limits me personally on the single track trails is how steep they are. If it's too steep to climb, obviously you're going to be walking up. So I find most forestry roads and stuff like that, it can climb most of that kind of stuff, or kind of like intermediate single track trails are a ton of fun on these things. Not only did they think about all of that, but they've thrown lights on them. In the front, you've got a headlight, and in the back, you've got a rear red light. So that you can actually use them at night. Full pitch dark. I've gone on midnight missions and super fun. You can see just fine, and the crazy thing about it is if you're going this direction, well then the white light's going to be here, the red light's going to be in the back. But if you switch direction and you just start going this way, it switches to the white light here and the red light in the back. So what I'm trying to get at is these things are very intuitive. And they're a lot of fun. So this is the Pint model. The Pint model, like I was saying, is the slightly smaller model, maybe for either lighter weight riders or people that are focused mostly on commuting, because it's a nice, tight, small package. The other model is the XR, and the XR is the one that I prefer. It's a little bit heavier, definitely. Has a bigger wheel. People ask what kind of wheels these are. I believe they're high-performance go-kart wheels. So they've got good puncture resistance. I've never had a flat on them. They're a lot of fun that way. This guy, like I said, has the bigger batteries and the bigger motor, so it's going to go a little bit faster, up to that 32, whereas I believe the Pint goes around 25, again, depending on the weight of the rider. But this guy has a bigger motor, bigger batteries, can take you a little further, a little faster, and take you up a little steeper stuff. Or I notice a definite difference when I go with my kids. My kids are a lot lighter weight, so they chew through the batteries slower than I do at my weight. So usually what we do is halfway through the ride, we'll switch out, and then that way we both end up powering out at about the same time. One thing about Onewheel that I'm not super psyched about, but it is what they are. All the accessories for them are aftermarket. Right down to the plug that you'd put into your power port here. I think the reason why they did it was for a fun reason, actually, so that you can do all sorts of different colors and have fun with that. But you do need to get a few accessories, in my personal opinion. The ones that to me are mandatory would be a power plug, just so that when you're going through water, stuff like that, because they're able to do that, you don't get water into the plug and start causing problems with the Onewheel. The other one that I think is fantastic is the fender. The fender just protects you against things spitting up at you, and it also gives your foot a place to stop so that your foot doesn't hit the wheel and you can get pitched off by the wheel. So I like the fender for both those reasons. A, stuff isn't flying up at me, and B, I'm not gonna hit the rolling wheel and get launched off the Onewheel. One thing that I highly, highly recommend with Onewheels, they are good at breaking wrists and collarbones, so definitely wear a helmet and definitely wear a set of wrist guards. Wrist guards will save you because a lot of the crashes, you're going down onto your hands. It's very similar to snowboarding that way. A lot of collarbones, a lot of wrists, and your head can hit, obviously. So getting padded up makes a lot of sense on these things. But the basic deal is that Onewheels, not only are they an amazing commuter, but they're a ton of fun. Like I said, the single track trails are absolutely epic on them. They can go over bumps. They can do all sorts of stuff. Really, the limiting factor on these things is how good you are. And as you get better, you can take them in more places. Well, that's been Onewheel, and I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, you can pop down to your local Onewheel dealer and they'll help you out and answer some things for you. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hi, I'm Mike, and this is Gear Up. Today we're going to talk about tubelessing your bike. So a lot of people think that doing a tubeless setup is quite difficult. It used to be, whereas now with the newer product, it's fairly easy to do. And with the new bikes, it's very easy to do. Doesn't mean that you can't retro your old system to be tubeless, but it is a little bit easier with the newer stuff. So first off, we're just going to go over some definitions of things. This is your wheel. This is the tube that runs inside of the tire. So you got the tire, the tube sits inside the tire and on top of the rim. So what you're doing is you're getting rid of this part of the system. And the reason why you're getting rid of the tube is because tubes can pinch flat. What a pinch flat is when you impact something hard enough, say a rock, a curb, whatever, that it goes through the tire pressure and then pinches the tube between that hard object and the rim. And it'll cause two little holes side by side that we nicknamed it a snake bite. So anytime you see two holes side by side, that's from too low air pressure impacting something, and you'll get that snake bite hole pattern. So the whole idea of this tubeless thing is to get rid of this guy. So the tube has a valve stem on it right here, and all that you're replacing is you're getting rid of the inner tube part of it, the rubber, and you're just going to replace it with some valve stems. So these valve stems just go into your wheel, just like a tubed one would go into your wheel. But it just goes into your wheel, and that is how you get air in and out of the system. The one part that I talked about, whether it's easy or not, is if the rim is taped and ready to go tubeless. This one is not. And the reason why I chose this one is to show you, if you have air holes all the way through here, the air is just gonna leak through and you're not gonna have a sealed system. So you can buy a tape that wraps around the rim and seals that so that you've got an airtight barrier. So you're gonna have tape on the rim, you're gonna have your valve stem in through the wheel, then you're gonna put your tire on. And before you finish putting your tire on, you're gonna bead your tire all the way around, except for just a small little area at the bottom. And what you're gonna do is you're either gonna get some tubeless sealant like this, or a small little one dose kind of sealant like this. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna dump that into the tire. This sealant is designed to plug holes. So the really, really cool thing about tubeless is that if you're running lower air pressure and you get that snake bite, even through the sidewall of the tire, the sealant can actually plug those holes. The sealant can plug holes to about the size of the inside of a pencil lead, not a mechanical pencil, the old school ones. So it can plug a hole that's, I don't know, what's that, 2 mils, 2.5 mils in diameter. It can plug that hole like you've never even had it. Because as you're riding your bicycle, the sealant is inside the tire and it's running. So you impact here and you get a flat, you'll hear some hissing air until the next time it comes around. Then when it comes back down to the bottom, the gravity will pull the sealant to the bottom and seal the hole. So some of the really, really big benefits of tubeless are that pinch flats are basically non-existent. And that is majority of people's flats out in the trails is due to a pinch flat. Partially because they don't monitor their air pressure in their tires very well, and partially just because tubes are prone to getting pinch flats, whereas a tubeless system is not. So that's one thing. The next thing is on your bigger flat, your bigger punctures. So a stick or something like that that's a little bit bigger. Again, chances are you're probably not gonna have to even get off the bike or add some more air to the system. It'll probably plug that. Now, what happens when the hole is just a little bit too big for the sealant alone to plug? Well, if you've ridden quads or anything like that, you're gonna have heard of tire plugs. And tire plugs are quite simple. They're little strips like this. We call this a side of bacon or bacon strips. And what I like to do is I put 2 bacon strips into this little tool right here. So you put one in, another one in, so you've got 2 strips of bacon sitting between the little fork there. When you put that in, you find the hole that is too big for the sealant to plug, and it's easy to find because the sealant, whether it be this brand is white, there's pink, there's all sorts of different colors of sealant, but you'll be able to see where the sealant is coming out and not able to plug the hole. You're gonna take the tool with the bacon strips on it, find the hole, push the tool through the hole, hold the bacon strips and pull the tool out. You're gonna be left with about that much of the bacon strip sticking out of the tire. That's fine. When you get home, you can trim it down a little bit. But what that does is that plugs enough of the hole that the sealant can do the rest. So that's your next size of hole. Your third size of hole, well, that's a tire slash. If you slash out the sidewall of a tire, usually nothing will help you with that. Tubeless won't help you with that. Tire plugs won't help you with that. You have to put a new inner tube in. But a lot of people are under the impression just because they've gone tubeless, well, how can I put an inner tube in? Well, all you have to do is take the valve stem out of your wheel, carry a spare tube with you, and put a tube back in. The big thing that you need to do when you put a tube back into a slash tire is you need to tire boot it from the inside. And what that is it's a hard material. This is a tire boot here. It's a sticky plastic material that goes to the inside of the tire. What that does is it stops the tube from hemorrhaging through the hole and then blowing up. So you put the tire boot on the inside and then you just do a regular tube change as per usual on a regular bike. So we talked about some of the benefits of tubeless, but there's more. For the person that really likes to dial in their air pressure, on their bike. Lower air pressure will give you better grip, better traction, and believe it or not, sometimes better rolling resistance. Back in the day, they basically thought the higher your air pressure, the faster you'd roll. Well, that's true on an absolutely flat surface, but when you're talking about mountain biking or even biking on Cranbrook streets, where there's bumps and rocks and all sorts of things, you get what's called negative feedback. Negative feedback is when your tire hits something, and if it's got a lot of tire pressure, it's going to bounce back. So you get negative energy moving in the opposite direction that you're trying to move. If you run lower air pressure, the tire can actually conform over top of the bump and roll over it without incurring negative feedback, which is much more efficient and faster. So when you're out on the trails, you've got to find that balance of having enough air pressure in there that you're holding the tire on the bead and the tire still has sidewall stability and it feels good in the corners, but low enough that it's conforming over top of those rocks, giving you maximum traction, maximum grip in the corners. So tubeless allows you to run significantly lower, because if you remember, we talked about tubeless not getting pinch flats. You can run a lot lower. I weigh 220 pounds, and the reason why I share that with you is because it's tube pressure or tire pressure is relevant to your weight. Somebody that weighs more is going to need a little bit more air pressure. Somebody that's lighter can get away with less. Also, another thing to factor into how much tire pressure you use is how aggressive you are, what types of trails you're riding on. Aggressiveness obviously is, if you're impacting things harder and faster, you need a little bit more tire pressure. If you're a lighter weight rider, you're not going to hammer through that tire as fast and cause problems. So we've gone over that tubeless fixes flats for you. It gives you better control and grip on the trail, whether you use that to go faster or just to be more stable on the trail. That's completely your choice. And the third thing that I really like about tubeless is that when I'm running tubeless, I check my air pressure every single ride. If you have consistent air pressure in your tires, you will ride smoother and better. The fact of the matter is that the tire pressure on a mountain bike is the first level of suspension. It's the suspension that's supposed to eat all the small little bumps that you can't see. Next, you've got your suspension on your bike that'll eat the medium-sized bumps. Then you've got your arms and legs to move to absorb the big bumps. But that tire pressure, if you consistently have that tire pressure at a consistent PSI, you will find that you'll move through the trails either more confidently or quicker, depending on how you choose to use that. The last thing about tubeless that I will say is a negative. If you don't like checking your air pressure every day and you're not an aggressive rider, maybe tubeless isn't for you. Because if you're not getting pinch flats and you don't like to maintain your air pressure and make sure your air pressure is dialed in, you probably shouldn't use tubeless. Because tubeless leaks air a little bit faster, you should air up your tires every single ride. So those are the negatives of tubeless. But overall, I'd have to say that tubeless is an innovation in the bike industry that is a huge positive, and that the user reaps a lot of rewards out of. If you have any questions about tubeless, go down to your local bike shop. I'm sure they'll be happy to help you. Thanks for watching Gear Up.